My name is Maya Sterling. I'm 31 years old. Last Friday, my father sat me down at the mahogany dining table and told me I owed $300,000, or I was no longer his daughter. He claimed it was my younger sister's debt and that I had to step in because, according to him, family takes care of family. I looked at my father, then at my mother, who kept her eyes fixed on her lap and replied calmly, "Then I'm not." I drove 2 hours back to my apartment that night. But when I checked my financial profiles, what I found wasn't just a terrifying number on a screen. It was 3 years of calculated lies, signed under my identity by the very people who raised me. Exactly 7 days later, my entire family showed up on my doorstep. I opened the door and uttered just 2 words. Before I take you back to that life-altering Friday night, make sure to like and subscribe so you don't miss the conclusion. Drop your city and local time in the comments below. I'd love to know where you are tuning in from. Now, let me take you back to 3 weeks ago, the night my father called an urgent family meeting. The drive from Springfield to Oak Ridge usually takes about 2 hours if the highway is clear. That Friday, heavy rain slowed traffic, giving me more than enough time to ponder why my father had used the word urgent over the phone. Richard Sterling never used that word for holidays, birthdays, or medical visits. He saved it exclusively for his business, Sterling and Sons Hardware, a brick-and-mortar store operating on the ground floor of my parents' building for over 3 decades. There was no son. There never had been, just me and my younger sister Chloe. The business sign was aspirational, my father once remarked. I stopped asking about it after that. Growing up, the division of roles was crystal clear. I was handed responsibility, Chloe was given unconditional protection. I worked the store's cash register starting at age 16, paid my own way through university, and graduated summa cum laude in forensic accounting. Chloe, on the other hand, had her entire tuition fully covered, received a brand new car for her 21st birthday, and was handed generous seed capital for an online boutique selling luxury candles and designer silk scarves. When her boutique failed to yield a profit in its first year, my father refinanced an asset, I never knew which one, and poured more money into her business. I didn't hold a grudge. I told myself that's simply how dynamics work in some families. Some children get the safety net, while others are built to be the safety net. I took pride in what I had built entirely on my own merit. A senior auditor position at a mid-size corporate firm in Springfield, a solid savings fund I never touched, and a down payment sitting safely in escrow for my very first home, a charming 2-bedroom house with a small backyard garden. I parked behind my parents' building at 7:15 p.m. The lights on the upper floor were illuminated, but Chloe's car was missing from the driveway. My father met me right at the back door. There was no welcome hug. "Your sister is running late. Come sit down," he said coldly. The kitchen table was completely bare. No plates, no tea, no food, just my father and mother sitting opposite each other like an interrogation panel. I immediately felt something was terribly wrong. My father didn't ease into the conversation, he never does. "Chloe is in serious financial trouble," he stated plainly. "The boutique, the expansion financing, all of it failed. She owes $300,000. I placed my car keys on the table, mentally running the calculations. Occupational hazard. That figure represented roughly 6 years of my gross income, nearly every single penny I had managed to save since leaving university. "That is an astronomical amount of debt," I responded quietly. "What is her plan to resolve it?" My father leaned forward, placing his hands flat against the wooden table, fingers spread wide, the exact posture he used behind the store counter when quoting a non-negotiable price to a customer. "You are paying it," he declared flatly, "or you are no longer our child." The room fell into an uncomfortable silence, punctuated only by the low hum of the refrigerator. My mother stared intently at her hands, nervously spinning her wedding ring round and round like a dial she couldn't align. "Why me?" I asked, keeping my voice steady. "Because you have the capacity," my father replied smoothly. "She doesn't." "I have been saving for a home," I countered. "A home can wait," my father snapped back. "Family cannot." I turned my attention to my mother. Do you agree with this? She refused to meet my gaze. Your father knows what is best for this family, she whispered. There it was. It wasn't a request, nor was it an open discussion. It was a verdict handed down at the kitchen table in the very same tone my father used to inform vendors that their invoices were incorrect. Except now, I was the vendor, and the invoice was my entire financial existence. I stood up slowly. My chair didn't scrape against the floor. I lifted it back carefully, just as I had been taught as a child. Even in that heavy moment, I remained polite. Even in that moment, I was the dutiful, reliable daughter. Then I'm not, I said. My father blinked, caught off guard. Not what? Your child. If that is the non-negotiable condition, then I'm not. I picked up my keys from the table. My mother finally looked up, her expression shifting, but I was already walking toward the door. I didn't raise my voice, there was no need to. I drove back toward Springfield through the dark highway. Somewhere around mile marker 80, the figure began to deeply bother me, $300,000. My father had stated it with absolute precision, not around 300 grand or a few $100,000. He stated an exact rehearsed number. Richard Sterling never guesses financial figures. He analyzes them, which meant he hadn't just heard about Chloe's debt. He had been staring at it, studying it, and memorizing the total. By the time I unlocked my apartment door, it was nearly 10:00 p.m. I checked my bank accounts first, checking high-yield savings and the escrow fund for my house purchase. Everything looked intact, but a deep feeling of unease persisted. 3 weeks prior, my mortgage pre-approval had been suddenly denied by the lender. The loan officer mentioned subtle discrepancies in my credit profile and advised me to pull a detailed report. At the time, I assumed it was a system error or a minor clerical glitch that I could resolve on Monday. Now, sitting in the dark after my father had demanded a six-figure sum with absolute certainty, I pulled my credit files directly from the major credit reporting bureaus. My credit score had plummeted to a shocking 480. I stared at the screen in disbelief. There were 4 credit cards opened in my name that I had never applied for, an auto loan for $45,000 on a luxury vehicle I had never driven, and 2 personal loans totaling $120,000 from private lenders I had never contacted. Every single account was severely delinquent, some overdue by 6 months, others by more than a year, accumulating massive late fees, collection notices, and legal liens. The legal name listed on every single account was mine. The social security number belonged to me. The residential addresses associated with the accounts, however, were not mine. I sat on the edge of my bed, staring at the glowing monitor until the figures stopped looking like financial data and began looking like what they truly were, a crime scene. The addresses listed were unfamiliar to my current life, but I instantly recognized the zip code. It was Oak Ridge. I didn't sleep a single minute that night. I pulled exhaustive credit reports from all 3 primary bureaus, Equifax, TransUnion, and Experian. While the minor reporting details varied slightly between them, the overall scope of the damage was painfully clear and complete. The reports were identical. The total debt accumulated under my name was exactly $312,000. 4 credit cards with combined credit limits of $67,000. An auto loan for $45,000 on a luxury BMW X3 registered in the state. 2 personal loans from online lenders, one for $70,000 and another for $50,000. A store credit line for $22,000 at a high-end furnishing company I had never even heard of. Interest charges, penalty fees, and relentless collection accounts. The mailing address listed on every single account was a P.O. box in Oak Ridge, not my apartment in Springfield, and not any address I had ever lived at. A P.O. box. Someone had set it up specifically to intercept the paperwork and hide the truth. I am a senior auditor. I review financial documents for a living. I recognize fraud when I see it in spreadsheets, in receipts, and in journal entries that don't match. But I had never thought to look at my own credit report the way I look at a client's ledger. I had trusted the one institution I never audited, my family. Someone had used my social security number to open accounts. Someone had forged my signature on applications. Someone had redirected my mail so I would never see a single statement or collection letter for 3 whole years. $312,000. That was almost exactly the number my father had quoted at the dining table. The number he told me was Chloe's debt that I needed to pay. He wasn't asking me to bail out my sister. He was asking me to quietly absorb a debt that already existed under my name, a debt he had actively helped create. I said it out loud for the first time, alone in my apartment at 12:30 in the morning. My parents stole my identity. 3 months ago, I had found the house, a 2-bedroom home with white siding, navy shutters, and a backyard with a maple tree that would turn bright gold in October. I had put down $15,000 from a savings account I had fed since I was 23 years old. 8 long years of packing lunches, skipping vacations, and driving a car with over 200,000 miles on it. The mortgage officer at the bank had smiled when she reviewed my income statement. "This should be completely straightforward," she had said. 2 weeks later, she called back. Denied. Something about credit profile irregularities. She recommended I check my report and reapply. I had assumed it was a minor hiccup, a transposed digit, or a duplicate entry. I told myself I would handle it after the holidays. Now I knew what the irregularity was. A credit score of 480 means no one lends you money, not for a house, not for a car, not for a business. To any lender in the country, I looked like someone who borrows recklessly and never pays back. My 8 years of strict discipline and my perfect payment history on my actual accounts meant nothing. The fraud had buried everything. And if I did nothing, the debt would keep accruing. The collection agencies would keep calling, eventually moving from the P.O. box in Oak Ridge to my real address and my corporate workplace. I could be sued by creditors for debts I never incurred, and my wages could be garnished. My career as a financial auditor, a profession built entirely on trust and integrity, would be completely over. I called Nora at 2:00 in the morning. She picked up on the second ring because that's the kind of friend she is. I told her everything: the dinner, the exact number, and the horrifying credit reports. She was dead silent for 10 seconds. Nora is never silent for 10 seconds. "Maya, you need a lawyer tonight," she said sternly. Nora works in forensic accounting, the kind of work where you untangle financial crime trails for a living. 2 years ago, she had consulted on a high-stakes case involving a client whose ex-husband had opened credit lines in her name. The attorney who handled it was named Russell Kemp, and according to Nora, he was the sharpest identity theft litigator in the region. "He isn't cheap," Nora added, "but he is ruthless and thorough." I emailed Russell Kemp at 3:17 in the morning. I attached screenshots of all 3 credit reports, the mortgage denial letter, and a precise summary of what my father had demanded at dinner. I wrote it the way I would write an official memo at work: chronological, factual, with zero editorializing. Russell replied at 6:42 a.m. with just 4 sentences. "Ms. Sterling, I have reviewed the attachments. This appears to be a clear case of familial identity theft involving federal mail fraud and forged loan applications. Do not contact your family. Do not confront them. We need documentation before anything else. Do not contact your family." The sentence sat on my screen like an insurmountable wall. These weren't strangers. This was the woman who drove me to my first day of school and the man who taught me how to balance a checkbook. But Russell was right. I had spent my entire career examining other people's financial misconduct, following evidence trails, flagging discrepancies, and building cases that held up under scrutiny. Now, I had to do the exact same thing, except the case was my own life, and the prime suspects were the people who raised me. I wrote back, "Understood, what do I need to do first?" He replied in 30 seconds. "Check your USPS mail forwarding history. If someone rerouted your mail without authorization, that is a federal offense. That changes everything." I opened a new browser tab. My hands were steady, but my chest was pounding. At 7:00 a.m. on Saturday morning, my phone rang. It was my father. I almost let it go to voicemail, but Russell had said, "Don't confront." He hadn't said, "Don't listen." So I picked up. "You made your mother cry all night," was his opening line. No hello, no apology. She's heartbroken. Her own daughter walked out. "I didn't walk out," I said calmly. "I said no." "Same thing in this family," he snapped. I let that statement sit. The silence stretched long enough that I could hear the background hum of the cash register downstairs. On Saturday mornings, the hardware store opens at 7:00 a.m. sharp. Even in a crisis, Richard Sterling opens on time. "Dad, we need to talk about the money," I said. "That's what I tried to do last night," he replied. "No," I corrected. "We need to talk about where that money actually came from." A long pause, 3 seconds, 4. "Family takes care of family, Maya," he said. "Family doesn't steal from family either," I retorted. 5 seconds of silence now. I counted every single one of them. "Nobody stole anything," he said, his voice dropping half an octave, the tone he uses when choosing his words very carefully. "We borrowed." "You don't borrow what you never asked for," I replied. "We were going to pay it back once the store turned around," he claimed. "The store hasn't turned a profit in 6 years, Dad," I said. He didn't deny it, nor did he offer an explanation. Instead, he shifted tactics. "If you do something stupid, Maya, you will tear this entire family apart." "Something stupid like calling my bank?" I asked. Dead silence on the line. No sharp inhale, no frantic scramble for excuses, just cold, heavy silence. The kind of silence that tells you the other person already knew you would find out, he just hadn't expected it to happen this fast. "We will talk about this as a family," he said firmly. "We will talk about it with my lawyer," I replied and hung up. I set the phone down and noticed something crucial. He hadn't denied the fraud, not once. He had only tried to reframe it as borrowing. My mother called at 4:00 that afternoon. She had been crying, or she wanted me to think she had. "Your father has high blood pressure, Maya," she pleaded. "You know this kind of stress could put him in the hospital." "I understand," I replied coldly. "Then come home," she urged. "We'll sit down, all 4 of us, and fix this." The reports were identical. The total debt accumulated under my name was exactly $312,000. 4 credit cards with combined credit limits of $67,000. An auto loan for $45,000 on a luxury BMW X3 registered in the state. 2 personal loans from online lenders, one for $70,000 and another for $50,000. A store credit line for $22,000 at a high-end furnishing company I had never even heard of. Interest charges, penalty fees, and relentless collection accounts. The mailing address listed on every single account was a P.O. box in Oak Ridge, not my apartment in Springfield, and not any address I had ever lived at. A P.O. box. Someone had set it up specifically to intercept the paperwork and hide the truth. I am a senior auditor. I review financial documents for a living. I recognize fraud when I see it in spreadsheets, in receipts, and in journal entries that don't match. But I had never thought to look at my own credit report the way I look at a client's ledger. I had trusted the one institution I never audited, my family. Someone had used my social security number to open accounts. Someone had forged my signature on applications. Someone had redirected my mail so I would never see a single statement or collection letter for 3 whole years. $312,000. That was almost exactly the number my father had quoted at the dining table. The number he told me was Chloe's debt that I needed to pay. He wasn't asking me to bail out my sister. He was asking me to quietly absorb a debt that already existed under my name, a debt he had actively helped create. I said it out loud for the first time, alone in my apartment at 12:30 in the morning. My parents stole my identity. 3 months ago, I had found the house. A 2-bedroom home with white siding, navy shutters, and a backyard with a maple tree that would turn bright gold in October. I had put down $15,000 from a savings account I had fed since I was 23 years old. 8 long years of packing lunches, skipping vacations, and driving a car with over 200,000 miles on it. The mortgage officer at the bank had smiled when she reviewed my income statement. "This should be completely straightforward," she had said. 2 weeks later, she called back. Denied. Something about credit profile irregularities. She recommended I check my report and reapply. I had assumed it was a minor hiccup, a transposed digit, or a duplicate entry. I told myself I would handle it after the holidays. Now I knew what the irregularity was. A credit score of 480 means no one lends you money, not for a house, not for a car, not for a business. To any lender in the country, I looked like someone who borrows recklessly and never pays back. My 8 years of strict discipline and my perfect payment history on my actual accounts meant nothing. The fraud had buried everything. And if I did nothing, the debt would keep accruing. The collection agencies would keep calling, eventually moving from the P.O. box in Oak Ridge to my real address and my corporate workplace. I could be sued by creditors for debts I never incurred, and my wages could be garnished. My career as a financial auditor, a profession built entirely on trust and integrity, would be completely over. I called Nora at 2:00 in the morning. She picked up on the second ring because that's the kind of friend she is. I told her everything: the dinner, the exact number, and the horrifying credit reports. She was dead silent for 10 seconds. Nora is never silent for 10 seconds. "Maya, you need a lawyer tonight," she said sternly. Nora works in forensic accounting, the kind of work where you untangle financial crime trails for a living. 2 years ago, she had consulted on a high-stakes case involving a client whose ex-husband had opened credit lines in her name. The attorney who handled it was named Russell Kemp, and according to Nora, he was the sharpest identity theft litigator in the region. "He isn't cheap," Nora added, "but he is ruthless and thorough." I emailed Russell Kemp at 3:17 in the morning. I attached screenshots of all 3 credit reports, the mortgage denial letter, and a precise summary of what my father had demanded at dinner. I wrote it the way I would write an official memo at work: chronological, factual, with zero editorializing. Russell replied at 6:42 a.m. with just 4 sentences. "Ms. Sterling, I have reviewed the attachments. This appears to be a clear case of familial identity theft involving federal mail fraud and forged loan applications. Do not contact your family. Do not confront them. We need documentation before anything else. Do not contact your family." The sentence sat on my screen like an insurmountable wall. These weren't strangers. This was the woman who drove me to my first day of school and the man who taught me how to balance a checkbook. But Russell was right. I had spent my entire career examining other people's financial misconduct, following evidence trails, flagging discrepancies, and building cases that held up under scrutiny. Now, I had to do the exact same thing, except the case was my own life, and the prime suspects were the people who raised me. I wrote back, "Understood, what do I need to do first?" He replied in 30 seconds. "Check your USPS mail forwarding history. If someone rerouted your mail without authorization, that is a federal offense. That changes everything." I opened a new browser tab. My hands were steady, but my chest was pounding. At 7:00 a.m. on Saturday morning, my phone rang. It was my father. I almost let it go to voicemail, but Russell had said, "Don't confront." He hadn't said, "Don't listen." So I picked up. "You made your mother cry all night," was his opening line. No hello, no apology. She's heartbroken. Her own daughter walked out. "I didn't walk out," I said calmly. "I said no." "Same thing in this family," he snapped. I let that statement sit. The silence stretched long enough that I could hear the background hum of the cash register downstairs. On Saturday mornings, the hardware store opens at 7:00 a.m. sharp. Even in a crisis, Richard Sterling opens on time. "Dad, we need to talk about the money," I said. "That's what I tried to do last night," he replied. "No," I corrected. "We need to talk about where that money actually came from." A long pause, 3 seconds, 4. "Family takes care of family, Maya," he said. Family doesn't steal from family either, I retorted. 5 seconds of silence now. I counted every single one of them. Nobody stole anything, he said, his voice dropping half an octave, the tone he uses when choosing his words very carefully. We borrowed. You don't borrow what you never asked for, I replied. We were going to pay it back once the store turned around, he claimed. The store hasn't turned a profit in 6 years, Dad, I said. He didn't deny it, nor did he offer an explanation. Instead, he shifted tactics. If you do something stupid, Maya, you will tear this entire family apart. Something stupid like calling my bank, I asked. Dead silence on the line. No sharp inhale, no frantic scramble for excuses, just cold, heavy silence. The kind of silence that tells you the other person already knew you would find out, he just hadn't expected it to happen this fast. We will talk about this as a family, he said firmly. We will talk about it with my lawyer, I replied and hung up. I set the phone down and noticed something crucial. He hadn't denied the fraud, not once. He had only tried to reframe it as borrowing. My mother called at 4:00 that afternoon. She had been crying, or she wanted me to think she had. Your father has high blood pressure, Maya, she pleaded. You know this kind of stress could put him in the hospital. I understand, I replied coldly. Then come home, she urged. We'll sit down, all four of us, and fix this. Wednesday morning, day one, brought nothing from my father. My mother texted at 9:00 a.m. Please don't do this to your father, he hasn't slept. I didn't respond. Chloe texted at noon. This is so unfair to me, I didn't ask for any of this. I looked at her text, knowing her luxury vehicle was parked right outside her apartment, furnished with things she never asked for but happily took. I put my phone in the desk drawer at work and didn't check it until 5 p.m. 14 missed messages. Mom, Chloe, Mom again, and an unrecognized landline that turned out to be Aunt Colleen. I answered none of them. That evening, I sat on my couch with the TV off and counted the hours. Russell had the documents ready. The FTC identity theft report, credit freeze applications for all 3 bureaus, the IC3 complaint for the FBI, and the police report template for the local precinct. Everything was drafted, reviewed, and waiting for my real signature. 7 days. I'd given them 7 days to do the right thing, to show me that the people who raised me could own what they'd done. It was the longest I'd ever waited for anything. Day 1 passed, nobody came clean. On day 2, Thursday morning, Aunt Colleen called while I was reviewing a quarterly report at my desk. Her voice had that specific pitch it gets when she's been appointed spokesperson for a family grievance. Your father told us everything, she said. I don't understand how you could do this, Maya. Threaten your own parents with lawyers. I set my pen down. What exactly did he tell you? That Chloe is in financial trouble and I refused to help, and now I've hired some attorney to intimidate the family. There it was, Richard's version, edited, rearranged, and stripped of every detail that mattered. In his version, I was the villain, the ungrateful daughter who could help but chose not to, and then weaponized the legal system against her own blood. Aunt Colleen, that's not what happened, I said. Then explain it to me. Russell's voice echoed in my head. Don't share evidence with anyone except law enforcement. I can't go into details right now, but I promise you there's more to this story, I replied. There's always more to the story with your generation, she huffed. You know what your grandparents would have done. Take care of your own. I am taking care of my own, Aunt Colleen. That's the part Dad didn't mention. After everything Richard and Donna have done for you, the sacrifices they made. I could have listed the things they'd done to me instead of for me. I could have read her the credit report line by line, but Russell was right. Any information I shared now could compromise the case later. So, I swallowed it. I hope you'll give me the benefit of the doubt, until you have the full picture, I said. Your father's a good man, she said, and hung up. Richard's preemptive strike had landed exactly where he aimed it. Day 3, Friday. Richard created a group text at 8:00 am 14 people. Dad, Mom, Chloe, Aunt Colleen, Uncle Roy, cousins Kevin and Tyler, two of Mom's sisters, and relatives I only see at Thanksgiving and funerals. Richard's opening message was simple. Our family is going through a difficult time. Maya chose to involve lawyers instead of working things out as a family. We're asking her to reconsider. Then came the flood. Aunt Colleen, family first, always. Kevin, just pay it and move on, Maya. It's what family does. Mom's sister, Linda, I can't believe you'd put your parents through this. Tyler, this is between you guys, but lawyers make everything worse. Uncle Roy didn't comment. I noticed that. I scrolled through the messages for 3 hours. Not one person asked me what actually happened. Not one person asked for my side. They had all gotten Richard's version, a version that didn't include forged signatures, stolen social security numbers, a P.O. box under my mother's name, a BMW my sister drives, or $312,000 in fraudulent debt. In Richard's version, I was simply a daughter who wouldn't help. I screenshotted every single message, muted the thread, and put my phone in the drawer. Nora brought me coffee at noon, looked at my face, asked no questions, and set the mug on my desk. I drank the coffee, did my job, and waited. 4 days left. Day 4, Saturday. I was cleaning my apartment at 10:00 a.m. when someone knocked. I looked through the peephole. Donna stood in the hallway holding a Pyrex dish wrapped in foil and a grocery bag. Her eyes were swollen. She'd driven 2 hours to deliver a chicken pot pie. Part of me, the part that's still her daughter, wanted to open the door and pretend none of this had happened. That's the part she was counting on. I opened the door, but I didn't step aside. I made your favorite, she said. Can we just talk? We can talk right here. Maya, I came all this way. Mom, did you forge my signature on those loan applications? Her face did something complicated, a flinch that tried to become a smile and failed at both. Your father. Did you sign my name? She looked at the Pyrex, then at me, then at the carpet. I had to, she whispered. Yes, but I did it to keep this family together. You didn't keep this family together, Mom. You broke it, and you broke the law. She stood there holding the dish like a shield, her chin trembling, begging me with her posture to soften up. That's how it always worked. She brings food, I forgive, the cycle continues. Go home, Mom. Go home and tell Dad he has 3 days left. She walked to the elevator without looking back, taking the chicken pot pie with her. Day 5, Sunday evening. Richard called at 8:00 p.m. in his cold, controlled business voice, the voice he uses when firing a supplier. I want you to listen carefully, he said. If you file that report, I will tell everyone you abandoned your family. I'll call your firm and tell them you're emotionally unstable and making false accusations against your own parents. You'll have no family, no reputation, no one. You'll be the daughter who sent her own mother to prison over a misunderstanding. Are you done? I asked. I gave you 7 days, Dad. You've used them threatening me. I did what I had to do to save this family's business, he said. First-person ownership. In 5 days, he hadn't once denied it, but this was the closest he'd come to saying it plainly. You used my name, Dad, my credit, my future without asking, I said. You weren't using it, he replied. Those 5 words landed harder than anything else all week. As if my identity were an empty parking space, available for anyone who needed it more. 2 days left, I said and hung up. Day 6, Monday, nobody called. The group text went silent. My phone sat on the kitchen counter all evening like a device someone had unplugged. Now the final countdown begins. I had lunch at my desk, came home, microwaved leftover pasta, and sat in the quiet of my apartment. The silence should have been a relief. It wasn't. It was the silence of someone regrouping. That evening, I met Russell at his office. He spread the documents across the conference table in the order they'd be filed. FTC identity theft report, police report with the local precinct, credit freeze applications for Equifax, TransUnion, and Experian, and the FBI IC3 complaint. Every box was checked. Every line completed except the signature, my signature, the real one. Once these are filed, Russell said, the creditors are legally required to investigate. The fraudulent accounts will be flagged. It'll take 12 to 18 months for full credit recovery, but the process works. And as for your parents, that depends on the federal agencies, but mail fraud, identity theft, and bank fraud carry serious penalties. My mother admitted to the forgery, I said quietly, and my father effectively confessed to directing it. Filing meant consequences, real ones, the kind that show up in courtrooms and on permanent records. Day 7, Tuesday morning. I sat at my kitchen table with a pen and signed every single document. My hand didn't shake. Russell filed everything electronically before noon. At 4:30 that afternoon, I heard the first engine outside, then a second, then a third. I walked to the window. Richard's truck, Donna's sedan, Colleen's SUV, Uncle Roy's pickup, and Chloe's BMW, the one bought with my stolen identity. They came in a full convoy. I texted Russell, "They're here." He texted back, "I'm already in the parking lot, heading up." I opened the door before they even knocked. Richard stood at the front of the group wearing his Sunday jacket over a work shirt, dressed for authority. Donna was behind him, clutching her purse with both hands. Chloe was to the right, arms crossed, eyes red. Aunt Colleen and Uncle Roy flanked the sides, while Kevin and Tyler hovered near the stairwell like they weren't sure they wanted to be there. 7 people. My entire family, minus the ones too far away to drive. "We came to settle this, Maya, like a family," Richard said. "You're 7 days too late," I replied. He pushed his hands into his jacket pockets. "That's not how this works. You don't get to set a deadline for your own father." "I didn't set a deadline for my father," I said firmly. "I set a deadline for the people who committed fraud under my name." Colleen stepped forward. "Who is that man behind you? You brought a stranger into family business." Russell stepped up over my shoulder, holding out a business card with the kind of calm that comes from doing this hundreds of times. "Russell Kemp, attorney. I specialize in financial fraud and identity theft cases." Richard's face changed. Not a dramatic shift, just a tightening around the jaw, a narrowing of the eyes. He'd expected tears, an argument, a kitchen table negotiation where he set the terms. He hadn't expected a lawyer standing in his daughter's doorway with a card that said fraud in the first line of his job description. "It doesn't matter," Richard said. "It's a family matter." "It was a family matter," I said. "Then someone made it a federal one. Come in, all of you. There are some things you need to see." They filed into my living room and stood in a loose half-circle, nobody sitting. Russell set his briefcase on the coffee table, opened it, and I placed the documents on the table one at a time. In the last 3 years, 4 credit cards, 1 auto loan, and 2 personal loans were opened in my name, I stated calmly. Total, $312,000. I never signed any of these. I never applied for any of these. I never received a single statement. I pointed to the USPS record. My mail was redirected to a P.O. box registered to Donna Dawson. Every billing statement, every late notice, every collection letter intercepted for 3 years. I pointed to the loan applications. These signatures were forged. Mom admitted it to me 6 days ago. The room was dead silent, except for Donna, who had started weeping into her hands. Chloe stared at the floor. Richard stared at me. Kevin leaned forward to look at the documents but didn't pick them up. Tyler took a half step backward. Uncle Roy reached across the table, picked up one of the loan applications, and held it at arm's length. He's farsighted and studied the signature line for a long time. Then he looked at Richard. "Richard," Roy said, "this isn't Maya's handwriting. I've known Maya since she was born. I signed her high school graduation card. This." He tapped the signature line with his index finger. "This isn't her writing." Colleen looked at the document in Roy's hand. Her mouth opened, then closed. She turned to Richard. "You told us she refused to help Chloe. You didn't say anything about loans under her name." Richard's jaw tightened. "It was temporary. We were going to pay it back." The room shifted, not all at once but enough. Russell spoke for the first time, his voice level, reading like a weather forecast. Redirecting someone's mail without authorization is mail fraud, carrying a federal penalty of up to 5 years in prison. Opening financial accounts using another person's identity is identity theft, up to 15 years. Forging signatures on loan applications constitutes bank fraud, up to 30 years. These aren't civil disputes. These are federal crimes, and every agency involved treats them accordingly. Colleen's hand went to her throat. She looked at Richard the way you look at someone you suddenly realize you don't know as well as you thought. Richard, you told me this was about needing help. You said Maya was being selfish. I was protecting this family. Richard's voice rose for the first time. I built that business from nothing, 32 years. I wasn't going to let it die because. Mr. Sterling, Russell interrupted, his voice razor clean. My advice to you at this point is to retain your own legal counsel. Richard stopped mid-sentence. His mouth stayed open for a beat too long, then closed. Chloe hadn't moved. She stood near the doorway with her arms wrapped around herself, watching the room collapse without speaking a single word. Roy stepped away from Richard's side of the room. He didn't say anything, just moved 3 steps to the left, putting distance between himself and his brother-in-law. Colleen noticed. Tyler noticed. The alliance was fracturing, and Richard could feel it. For the first time in this room, Richard Sterling was not the one in control. I spoke directly to my father, no anger, no gloating, just the facts. I gave you 7 days to come to me, tell the truth, and work with my lawyer on a plan to fix this. Instead, you spent those 7 days calling my relatives, building a group text, and threatening to destroy my reputation. I paused. Nobody filled the silence. As of this morning, I have filed an identity theft report with the FTC, a police report with the local precinct, frozen my credit with all 3 bureaus, and submitted a complaint to the FBI's Internet Crime Complaint Center. Donna made a sharp exhale, like she'd been holding her breath and just ran out of air. Chloe's hand went to her mouth. Colleen closed her eyes. I didn't do this to punish you, I said. I did it because you gave me no other choice. Richard's face turned completely gray. You'll regret this, Richard said. No, Dad, you will, I replied. Donna stepped forward, her voice cracking. I'm your mother. Then you should have protected me. That landed, I watched it land. Donna's knees buckled slightly and Aunt Colleen caught her arm. Even Richard flinched, a micro-expression there and gone, but I saw it. I looked around the room at all 7 of them. People I'd shared holidays with, people who'd watched me graduate, people whose faces I knew better than my own. I'm not destroying this family, I said firmly. You destroyed it 3 years ago when you decided my name was something you could borrow. I'm just refusing to keep paying for the damage. Nobody spoke. Russell closed his briefcase with a quiet click. The sound was louder than anything else in the room. I had just told my entire family to their faces that I reported them to the FBI, and my hands weren't shaking. They left in the order they'd arrived, but slower. Richard walked out first. He didn't look at me, he didn't look at anyone. He walked to his truck with his hands still in his jacket pockets and shut the door without slamming it. Somehow that was worse. If he had slammed it, there would have been something left to say. Donna was next, leaning heavily on Colleen's arm. She was crying in a way I'd never seen before, not the performative tears she'd used on the phone, but the real kind, the kind that makes your breathing ugly. Colleen guided her down the hallway without a word to me. Whatever Colleen was feeling, she kept it folded tight. Kevin and Tyler left together, heads down, talking in low voices. Neither said goodbye. Chloe lingered. She stood in my doorway with her car keys in her hand, and for a moment, she looked exactly like the little sister who used to crawl into my bed during thunderstorms. Maya, I really didn't know about all of it, she started. You were driving a car bought with my stolen name, Chloe, I said calmly. She opened her mouth, closed it, and walked toward the elevator. Uncle Roy was last. He stopped in front of me and extended his hand. I shook it. His grip was firm, his eyes steady. He didn't say he was sorry, he didn't say he understood. He just nodded once, the kind of nod that means I see what happened here and I won't pretend I don't. Then he left. I closed the door. Russell was still standing by the coffee table, gathering his remaining documents. "You did the right thing," he said. I sat on the couch. The apartment was quiet. The table was clear except for a few paper clips and the ghost of 7 people who used to be my family. "I know," I said, "that's why it hurts." The legal process doesn't move like television. It's slower, quieter, and mostly paperwork. Russell contacted each creditor within 48 hours of filing. He sent certified letters containing my FTC identity theft report and a copy of Form 14,039. Each letter formally disputed the accounts, requested an investigation, and demanded documentation of the original applications. The responses trickled in over the next 2 weeks. The first credit card company confirmed that the signature on file didn't match my official signature with the state records. They flagged the account as fraudulent and suspended all collection activity. 3 days later, a second card issuer followed. The auto lender, the one that financed Chloe's BMW, opened an internal review. Their compliance team discovered that the loan application listed an employment history and income level that didn't match any publicly verifiable records. Someone had fabricated job details to qualify for the loan, the same someone who had forged my signature. The 2 personal loan companies moved in the same direction. Once Russell submitted the FTC report and the USPS forwarding evidence, both flagged the accounts as disputed and paused collection. Each investigation was a small machine grinding forward, comparing signatures, checking addresses, verifying employment, and tracing where the money went. None of it was dramatic, but all of it was necessary. I went to work every day. I reviewed other people's financial records while mine were being untangled. The irony wasn't lost on me. I could audit a corporation's books down to the penny, but I'd missed $312,000 of fraud under my own name because I'd never once treated my family like a client. That blind spot cost me 3 years. The FBI field office contacted Richard and Donna 6 weeks after I filed the complaint. They were asked to appear for voluntary interviews separately to compare statements. Richard hired his own attorney, a general practice lawyer who handled property disputes, not someone equipped for federal fraud allegations. The attorney's retainer came right from the store's operating account, the same store that was already losing money, the same store Richard had tried to save by stealing my identity in the first place. Now the store was funding his legal defense against the consequences of that decision. The circle was tightening. Donna retained a separate white-collar defense attorney. That fee came from Donna's personal savings, which was almost depleted after 3 years of covering Chloe's shortfalls. Chloe was contacted too. The FBI requested documentation related to the luxury BMW, registration, insurance records, and proof of payment. The car was titled in my name, insured using my social security number, and had never been driven by me. Her attorney advised her to cooperate fully. My credit score is slowly recovering, account by account. The house I wanted to buy is gone, but there will be another one. I haven't spoken to my parents or Chloe since that Tuesday afternoon. It took losing my family to finally get my life back, but for the first time in 3 years, my name belongs entirely to me. 3 lawyers, 3 retainer fees, 3 members of my family spending money they didn't have to defend actions they swore were done out of love. Russell gave me updates every few days, short and factual. I didn't call my family, and they didn't call me. The silence between us was no longer the silence of regrouping, it was the silence of people who had run out of ways to rewrite the story. 3 months after filing, the first real numbers came in. 3 of the 4 fraudulent credit cards had been closed and the balances removed from my credit report. The issuers had completed their investigations and confirmed identity theft. Those accounts, $67,000 in charges I never made, ceased to exist on paper. The auto loan was still under dispute. The lender's compliance team had confirmed the forged application, but the physical asset, the BMW X3, complicated things. The car either needed to be returned to the lender or refinanced under the actual driver's name. Chloe's attorney was negotiating, but Chloe's credit couldn't support a $45,000 loan on a boutique manager's part-time salary. The two personal loans were in active dispute, with both online lenders freezing collection activity while opening fraud investigations. Russell expected resolution within 60 days. The store credit line, $22,000 at a furnishing company, had already been removed. That one was easy. The company had no signature on file at all, just an online application using my social security number. Total fraudulent debt removed so far, $89,000. Remaining in dispute, $223,000. My credit score had crept from 480 to 582. Not good, but moving. Russell summarized it on a Tuesday afternoon call. Full recovery is 12 to 18 months. Some accounts will fight harder than others, but the trajectory is clear. You're getting your name back. Getting my name back, a strange phrase for something that should never have been taken. I checked the real estate listing that night. The house with the blue shutters and the maple tree was still on the market, and the price had dropped $8,000. I bookmarked it again. This time, I had reason to. The investigation into Richard moved faster than anyone expected. When the FBI reviewed the financial records from the family hardware store, they found what Russell had suspected. Richard hadn't just used my identity to fund Chloe's boutique. He had funneled a portion of the loan proceeds through the store's operating account to cover his own shortfalls: rent, payroll, and supplier invoices. The store had been hemorrhaging money for years, and my stolen credit was the IV drip keeping it alive. The FBI flagged it as money laundering adjacent, a commingling of fraudulently obtained funds with legitimate business accounts. Richard's local attorney was in over his head and referred him to a criminal defense specialist. That attorney's retainer was $15,000, which Richard took directly from the store's emergency fund. The charges Richard faced were serious: mail fraud up to 20 years per count, aggravated identity theft, a mandatory 2-year consecutive sentence, and bank fraud up to 30 years. His defense attorney recommended negotiating a plea deal before formal charges were filed, but Richard refused. "I'm not pleading guilty to anything," he told his lawyer, according to what Russell heard through the legal grapevine. But Richard's leverage was evaporating. The store's books were under federal review. His local attorney had documented conversations with the FBI that contradicted Richard's version of events, and his own wife had already admitted on record during her separate interview that Richard had directed her to forge the documents. For the first time in his life, Richard Sterling couldn't control the outcome, couldn't renegotiate the terms, and couldn't command the room. The price was being set for him, and he couldn't afford it. Donna's FBI interview lasted 4 hours. Russell obtained a summary through discovery. She had been cooperative. Her attorney advised full transparency from the start, and for once, Donna listened to someone other than Richard. She confirmed everything: the P.O. box, the mail forwarding, the forged signatures. She told agents she used my signed proxy authorization form to practice my handwriting. She said Richard had approached her with the idea 3 years ago after the store posted its 3rd consecutive year of losses, and Chloe ran through her initial capital. He said it would be one loan, she told investigators. Then one became 2, then there were credit cards. I kept telling myself we'd pay it back before Maya ever knew. Her attorney negotiated based on cooperation. Donna hadn't orchestrated the scheme, she had executed it under Richard's direction. The distinction mattered legally, if not morally. The prosecutor's office agreed to recommend reduced charges in exchange for her continued testimony. A week after the interview, Donna sent me a letter handwritten on the same stationery she uses for birthday cards. I recognized the handwriting instantly, the same hand that wrote "Happy Birthday, Sweetheart," and signed Maya Sterling on a $70,000 loan application. "I'm sorry," she wrote. "I was wrong. Your father told me it would be okay, and I believed him because it was easier than saying no. I'm starting therapy." I read Donna's letter twice. I folded it and put it in the filing cabinet where I keep documents that matter. I didn't write back, not because I didn't care, but because I wasn't ready to separate the mother who was sorry from the mother who had signed my name. They were the same person, and that was the hardest part. Chloe returned the BMW on a Tuesday in November. She couldn't refinance. Her real credit score under her actual name was 510, wrecked by the boutique's unpaid vendors and a string of missed rent payments her parents had quietly covered until the money ran out. No lender would touch her for a $45,000 auto loan. The dealership sent a driver to pick up the car. Chloe handed over the keys in the parking lot of her apartment. I know this because Russell's office received confirmation of the voluntary surrender. I tried to picture it. Chloe standing in a parking lot, watching someone drive away in a car she'd used for 2 years. A car bought with a name that wasn't hers. I wondered if she felt what I felt when I saw my credit report for the first time, or if it was a different kind of loss entirely. The boutique closed the following week without a dramatic announcement or going out of business sale, just a quiet shutdown. The Instagram page went dark, the website returned a 404 error, and whatever inventory remained was liquidated through a consignment shop for pennies on the dollar. Chloe got a part-time job at a home goods store for $19 an hour, working 30 hours a week. For the first time in her adult life, she was paying her own rent with her own income. She didn't call me, and I didn't call her. The distance between us wasn't anger anymore. It was something heavier and more honest. We were two people standing on opposite sides of a line our parents had drawn, and neither of us knew how to step across it without pretending the line didn't exist. The extended family reorganized itself the way families do after a fracture, slowly, silently, and without anyone admitting it. Aunt Colleen went quiet. She stopped calling on Richard's behalf, and at Thanksgiving, which I didn't attend, she reportedly sat at the opposite end of the table from Richard and spoke mostly to Uncle Roy. She never apologized to me, but I didn't expect her to. Kevin never mentioned it again, leaving only a generic Merry Christmas message in December, which I returned. Uncle Roy called me in January, brief and direct. I should have asked you what happened before I showed up at your door, he said. I'm sorry, your grandmother, my mother, would have done exactly what you did. Richard is my brother-in-law, but what he did was wrong. If you need anything, you call me. Roy became the one relative I kept in regular contact, with a brief, warm call every few weeks about ordinary things like the weather, baseball, or the price of lumber. The family didn't collapse the way Richard predicted. It rearranged. The people who wanted the truth found it, and the people who didn't looked away. 8 months after I filed, my credit score hit 710. When Russell called with the number, my hand shook, the first time it had shaken through any of this. 710, not perfect but enough. That Friday, I called the mortgage company. The loan officer reviewed my corrected credit profile, and by Monday I was approved. I signed the papers on a Wednesday morning at a title company office in Westerville. I read every line of the 40-page document, initialed every page, and when I reached the final signature line, I paused. The last time someone had signed my name on a financial document, it was my mother forging a life I never authorized. This time, the hand was mine. The choice was mine. The house was mine. Maya Sterling, my handwriting, my name. Nora helped me move on a Saturday, bringing coffee and an aggressively upbeat playlist. We carried boxes into a 2-bedroom house with white siding, blue shutters, and a maple tree in the backyard. I hung the house key on a small brass hook by the front door. Every time I look at it, it means the same thing. This is my house under my name, paid for with my money, signed in my hand, nobody else's. I froze my credit permanently with all 3 bureaus. It adds 5 minutes to every new transaction, and I've never once resented those 5 minutes. 2-factor authentication on everything, and a separate P.O. box in my name only. These are the walls I built where walls should have always been. With Richard, the boundary is simple: no contact until the legal process concludes. With Donna, I agreed to written letters only. She writes monthly, learning the language of accountability through therapy. The door isn't locked, it's just not open. With Chloe, nothing, no contact from either side. I didn't lose my family. I lost the version of my family that never existed, the one where everyone told the truth. The real version is smaller, but it's honest. It's a Sunday morning, and I'm sitting on my front step in Westerville with a cup of coffee. My father said family takes care of family, but he got the direction wrong. Taking care of family means protecting the people you love, not using them as collateral. It means telling the truth, even when it's expensive. If someone harms you financially, it's still a crime, even if they tell you it was done out of love. Setting a boundary isn't revenge, it's the first honest thing you can do for yourself. I didn't win wealth or status. I got my name back, a house that's mine, and the knowledge that I don't owe a single dollar to anyone for something I didn't do. The street is quiet, the coffee is finally cool enough to drink, and I take a sip. It's good. Your name belongs to you. Nobody gets to use it without your permission.